You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your host, Keith Wheeler.
And Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today is another great topic, in my opinion. It's how important is keyword research. And I think that's something that people are struggling with.
Yeah, I agree.
Research.
I agree. There's some great software out there. There's, plenty of videos that you have and I have and others have about, how to do keyword research, whether you're using Publisher Rocket or you're doing it, manually on Amazon in incognito mode or whatever. And I agree. There's so much confusion about it. And one reason why I think this is a great topic to cover is because I've known people who literally get stopped in the publishing tracks and don't publish a book because they're just so overwhelmed by the keyword research, or they're so overwhelmed, that maybe they've done it the manual way and then they've used something like Publisher Rocket and or Helium 10 or whatever else, and they're they look at it and maybe they're getting contradictory information. Maybe they're just confused because there's so many options, so many keywords that they could use, and so many are relevant to their book. What do I do? And then they get so overwhelmed that they just stop, they freeze. And one of the things that for people who may not know, keyword research, in my opinion and my experience, helps your book or whatever product get more discoverable on whatever platform you're on, whether it's Amazon, Etsy, whatever. But it's not the end all be all. It's not it's not the magic bullet that's going to make your book sell millions of copies. It's not.
Yeah.
It gets more people to see your book. That's it.
Yeah. And
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. And I think that's what's freezing people is it's so important, and I want to do everything right, that they just stop because they don't know what the right decision is. And unfortunately, and I can, definitely speak for myself, but I can't give you that answer. I mean, even if I know your book inside and out, I don't necessarily know your audience. I don't, there's not one right answer, I guess is the best way to put it.
That's very true.
It's okay to get it wrong. Mm-hmm. People's search history or search what they search up and things like that changes.
Yeah.
So you may have a hot keyword or a hot keyword phrase, and then you start noticing 6, 7, 8 months later that your book's, sales are going down. Maybe people aren't using that same keyword phrase anymore. Mm-hmm. I used to, and I don't do it as frequently just because I have so much on my plate, but, I used to go in and change my keywords on some of my books, once every 6 months, once every year. That said, I've known people who don't change their keywords once they put them in. Again, there's more efficient ways to do it, but there's not just one right answer. And it's definitely, while it is important, it's not so important that it should stop you from publishing your book.
Absolutely. I think that is the thing that makes me quite sad about it, that somebody might actually not publish their book because of keywords. And I think what helped me a lot, because I made a lot of mistakes with keywords, what really helped me understand what a keyword is it's very, very simple. A keyword is just the words that people type into Amazon to find your book. That's exactly all it is. And I hear terms like profitable keywords. I think someone said, I can help you find profitable keywords. And I thought, what the heck is that? Profitable keywords. I don't think there is such a thing. I mean, I think there is keywords that work better than others in helping your customers finding your books. Whether they're profitable or not, that's it equates keywords with making money almost. Right. And that is not the case. The keywords are just something that helps the people that are looking for a certain book find your book. Exactly. And for that to happen, your book has has got to have a keyword or in the title or in the 7 keyword slots in the back end that the person looking for something types in, and it coincides, or it's a coincidence that yours is the same keyword or has the same keyword. So if I'm creating a recipe book for strawberry cakes and it's all about strawberry cakes, then I would have strawberry cakes as a keyword somewhere because that's what the book is about. And I think the mistake I made at the beginning, and I think everybody does it as well, I used to put as many keywords in as possible. And especially in the 7 keyword slots in the back end, I used to make sure that I filled out as many of them as possible.
Right.
And actually, that's a big mistake. I find that now it's a big mistake because a lot of those keywords weren't that relevant.
Exactly.
I remember in the beginning, I used to put in things like gift for son, gift for daughter, gift for granddaughter. That is not the way to do it, because my thinking was, well, maybe someone's looking for a gift for their daughter and then they'll find my book. But of course, those sort of keywords, gift for daughter, could be anything, might not need to be a book even. It could be absolutely anything, could be a handbag, could be. So you're really not niching down enough, or you're not targeting your keywords to your books. So I would say, it's actually simpler than many people think. It's basically just thinking of words that describe your book or that describe what your book is used for, and there are your keywords. And don't use too many, just make them really relevant to your book. That's the main thing I would say to people. And I'm going to say something really controversial now, because I don't even research keywords that much anymore. I just I know that's a really bad thing to say, but I don't know, nowadays I just make books that I really want to make, that I want to create. And because I make them in niches that I know and that I understand, the keywords come naturally, So I do research in the sense that I try to make sure that there is demand for my books. I don't want to create a book that no one is looking for. But I don't do it to the extent that I used to in the beginning, where I used to, and I think there are some really good tools like Publisher Rocket, or free tools like the Self-Publishing Titans tools. They're excellent tools, and I use them not so much. I mean, I do some keyword research, but I use them more for ideas. I sometimes just get really good ideas from those tools, which to me is worth more than the actual keywords that I'm getting. So I think, I don't want to confuse people even further, but it's only because I think it's simpler than many people think. It's not as complicated. What do you think about that? Now I've spoiled it now.
No. I agree with everything you said. One thing that you said, and it's a word you said a couple times, and it is the most important word as far as Amazon is concerned, and most search engines, and that is relevancy. How relevant is it? One thing to keep in mind about a keyword or keyword phrase will not sell your book. It's that simple. Keywords help people find your book, and so that's, so what you were saying is, and what keywords to use and things like that is, it's all about relevancy. You said it multiple times, and because that's what's important. You can put things like, gift for moms, gift, because Mother's Day is coming up or whatever, but that's it may be relevant, it may be a great gift, but how many other things are out there that have that same keyword phrase, And so, not to get too far into the Amazon algorithm, but basically there's two things. There's indexing and there's ranking. Indexing means your book will show up for this. It might show up on page 1,000, but it will show up for it. So if you put gift for moms, your book will index for that, but it'll probably index lower, on page, 1,000, because it's less relevant than the other ones. Ranking is where your book is the most relevant to, and that's when you get to, first page placement or whatever. And so you want to make sure that you're ranking for words that are the most relevant to your book. And so, like you said, you don't do a lot of niche keyword research anymore. but that's fine because you know the niches that you're in
Yeah.
because you've done the niche research, and so basically, and this is one reason why you and I both, you know, are always telling people, especially when you first start out, do books in niches that you're familiar with
Mm.
because it saves on all that research. You already know the inside lingo. You already know, what the person searching for your type of book would type in. And that's what you want to do. And the way the algorithm works is whatever you put in whatever the person types in, the more word for word it is to what your keywords are, the more relevant it is to your book, the better chances you're going to get on the first page placement. And so it's not rocket science, but it's also not the end all be all. It's, like I said, keywords are never going to sell your book. Your book cover, your interior, your, book description. I mean, your book description's job is to sell your book,
Yeah.
not the keywords. The keywords are just what help people find your book.
Yeah. And it's also about the niche as well. I mean, you can make something in a niche that's really popular, and then it won't matter if your keywords are not properly researched, because it's very likely that your keywords are very, I would say, popular words for that
Right.
niche. So I think it's because this business has changed so much over the years. When we first started, it was always like, I think even I started because I heard someone say, you can just publish a notebook on Amazon KDP and make thousands a month in your sleep. And of course, everybody then started to create notebooks. And then it was important to do keyword research, because obviously you had to be found, and then it was very likely that people would buy your book because there wasn't the competition that there is now.
Right.
But there's so much competition now. There's so much stuff that's produced. I mean, do you remember those days when there used to be people selling tools that could bulk upload
Yep.
books on Amazon? And I think all of those things have contributed to there being just so many books out there on KDP at the moment that it's becoming a lot more competitive and a lot more, it's harder to find your books. So it's even more important to not just make a notebook. I mean, make a notebook to begin with, just to learn about it. But once you're learning the upload process and once you're familiar with everything, make books that have some kind of meaning to you, or make books that can help somebody else. I think a notebook, you can still make them, but I don't think they're going to be the thing that creates your business, unless you're really good at branding and you create a whole brand around them, and then that's a different story. But if you're not advertising and you're not promoting, then yes, it depends on your keywords, but it depends on the niche, really, because your keywords are just a way to describe your niche. That's all it is.
Yep.
So it's not complicated, and I hope people don't feel put off by keyword research, because it's just about finding the kind of words that people type into Amazon to find your book. And hopefully you can put them in the title and in the subtitle, because that's where they will be picked up better than in the back end keywords. But sometimes that's not possible. I feel that if you're writing, or if you create a book in a niche that's popular and that is then different to other ones, you can still make sales without too much promotion. It's a fine line, and you have to kind of find what exactly works for you, which could be something completely different for different people. But I don't think that keyword research, for me personally, is as important as it used to be at the beginning. I think I've changed my tactic or my strategy a little bit, because I now create different types of books. I don't do notebooks anymore. I don't do planners. I don't do logbooks, which are the typical sort of things you start out doing. And in those cases, I think maybe it is still very important. But I think in time you learn to create different types of books, and then the keywords are different as well. But yeah, it's definitely not as complicated as people think. And I hope if there's one thing they take away from this podcast today, is that that they take the leap forward and publish their books and not think about it too much, because you could change your keywords, your back-end keywords anyway.
Right.
You can't change the title and subtitle, but that's not too bad. I had one book actually, which is not selling all that well now. It's still making sales, but at one stage there was a whole year where most of my income was coming from that one book. And the reason it's not doing so well anymore is because of what you said. The keywords have changed. It's something that people aren't typing in as much anymore, because there's been a shift in, things trend as well differently.
Right.
So I could maybe revive it by going in and rejigging the keywords in the back end maybe. I haven't tried that. I should try it really. So I'll put that on my to-do list as well. But it can change. So there's always that. There's always the possibility of changing your keywords, but it shouldn't stop you from publishing your book.
Agreed.
And just taking that step.
Agreed. And you like you said, the title and the subtitle are going to be your strongest areas, because for keywords, because one, if it's your title, it probably is the most relevant. Again, it goes back to the relevancy. But again, like what you had said briefly, was, if it's, it's not always possible. And that's because you don't want to, what we used to call keyword stuff. You don't want if your title doesn't sound natural, if your subtitle doesn't sound natural, people are going to steer away from it. So it may be relevant, it may show up, and but if people don't click on it, if people don't buy it, the algorithm quickly says it may be the same title as what they put in, but it's clearly not relevant, and then you'll still drop down. So it's super important to make sure that the keywords that you use in your title and your subtitle, and even in the back end keywords in your book description, whatever, that they're relevant. It's are they relevant to your book? And one thing that we really didn't cover, but I just want to be clear, when we say keywords, it's not just one word. And that's why I try to say a keyword phrase. If you put in just a keyword in your back end, it's, while it may be super relevant, it's going to be so broad that it's probably still going to be indexed, but it's not going to rank very well for it. So so again, just to make that clear, when we say keywords, we're talking about multiple words. And it's, like I said, it's not, it's something that, especially when you're early on, I can see it getting overwhelming. Especially when you see all these videos where people are talking about, making, like you said, profitable keywords, or, this one keyword will make you millions. That's hogwash. It's not. Keywords will never sell your book. And I think that's the one thing that I cannot stress enough, is that keywords will never sell your book. That they might put it in, the right keywords will put it in front of your potential customer. But if and I've seen people spend so much time on keyword research, and then you ask them, did you hire somebody to do your book cover? No, I just threw that together in 5 minutes. No, it's like you're spending the time in the wrong areas. How long did you spend doing your interior, whether it's writing the book or creating the puzzle book or whatever? Oh, well, I took a template that was already out there and I just used that. Did you put any embellishments on it? Did you do anything to make it unique? Because if it doesn't stand out, that's the kind of stuff that sells your book, not the keywords. I can drive somebody to a restaurant or whatever, but if the food doesn't look good and the food doesn't taste good, they're not going to buy, And so, again, keyword research is important, especially when you're first starting out, and especially if it's a niche that you're not familiar with. Then yes, it is important. But again, it should never stop you from publishing your book.
And I think you said something that was very interesting. You said about the difference between a keyword and a key phrase, or a long tail keyword, we call it as well.
All fancy terms for the same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. And it's, in a way, it's all the same thing, even if it's just one word. You're basically trying to find the best word or the best phrase to type in as your keywords that will be the exact thing that somebody will type into Amazon to find your book. And I think where the research comes in there then is you might just want to change one little word in a phrase, and that might get you better results. So it is important to kind of try them out and to see, well, because I'm trying to think of an example, but let's just say I've got a children's book, Monty the Mouse. People that have done my course will know all about it. And it's
Monty,
teaching the colors of the rainbow. And so there might be, I mean, I haven't researched those keywords for quite a while. I can't remember when I made that book, but it was a while ago. And I would then maybe type in, I'm thinking, first of all, what will people type in to find my book? And what does my book do? Well, it teaches the colors. Simply put, it's teaching the colors. So you could try things like typing into a keyword research tool, book that teaches the colors to young children or something like that, and then see what it comes up with. And it might give you some alternatives or some keywords that are similar. And the drop down on Amazon itself gives you alternatives as well. So you can do your research that way, and you might find that even though I think that book that teaches the colors is probably the simplest way to put it, there may be another keyword that you add to it or take away that makes it even better, that improves the results. So that's where the keyword research comes in, really. But would I sell books the same way if I just said a book that teaches the colors? Probably yes, because that's what it is. It's a book that teaches colors. So you can't go wrong with that, I feel. So yes, you can research it a little bit further and see if you can improve on that. But at the end of the day, a keyword is just telling people what your book does, or saying this is what you're getting if you buy my book. And it's probably what they are typing in to find your book as well. So I think you have to think of your book and then just see, well, what would people type in to find it? What do people type in if they need my book? This is why it's so difficult with notebooks, because, you know, a notebook's a notebook, and how many notebooks are there? So that's where,
Then it's more, for me at least, it's more about the cover, the niche, if it's got flowers on it, then, a floral notebook or whatever. I tell you one thing I've done, and there's a couple reasons why this is helpful, is I've asked people, like IRL in real life, so one of the niches that I was in early on was softball, because both my daughters played competitive softball. And so I would, I created a notebook, and so I actually would be at a tournament, and I'd be talking to some of the parents, and I'm like, if you were looking for a journal for your daughter for softball, what would you type in? What would you look for? And the funny thing is it does two things. One, they'll give you great ideas. Okay. But the other thing is the way you ask them, the words you use are very similar to what they're going to search for. So you are unintentionally coming up with the keywords just by you explaining it to somebody. You show them the book and say, how would you look for, a softball journal? How would you look for that? Probably search for softball journal, things that you didn't think of at the time, or a tracker or whatever. Not everybody uses the word tracker. Some people would call it something else.
Yeah.
And so just like I said, just asking people, don't ask your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister if that's not the type of book they'd be interested in, because what they're searching, the way they would search, isn't what your potential customer would search.
Yeah.
So, that's why it's really important to stick with something, especially early on, that you're familiar with, because then you as the user, chances are you'll know other users, because people, even if it's online, I know I said in real life, but it could just be online, just messaging somebody, sending an email, sending something on Facebook or whatever, and say, look, if you were looking for a book for X, Y, and Z, what would you type in to Amazon? And again, they give you some great keywords. And if it's something that really speaks to your book and it makes sense to be the title, then put it in your title, or subtitle. But if it doesn't, that's fine. Especially the ones that don't really make a lot of sense, especially when you start doing what we call long tail keywords and you
Yeah.
start taking this keyword phrase and this keyword phrase and overlapping them. Those are great for the back end keywords, whether it's the 7 keyword slots on KDP or the other back ends on, Lulu or Ingram Spark or wherever else.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, but again, it's not, I find keyword research and niche research fun. But again, I just, like you said, if there's nothing else to take from this, it's that the keyword research is not going to sell your book. It's just going to, the keywords are not going to sell your book. They're just going to, hopefully bring more people to see your book.
Yeah.
And it should never stop you from publishing,
Yeah.
you know, and,
Absolutely.
and again, look at how much time you've spent in the keyword research phase versus how much you've spent doing the other important parts of your book production.
Yeah.
And if most of the time has been spent on the keyword research, then I would suggest, one, you're spending too much time on keyword research, or you're spending too little time in the other areas.
I think, that you brought out a good point there as well. And asking other people, the problem with that, or it's not a problem, it's actually quite useful. If you ask 10 different people, they will all come with 10 different
Right.
answers. So which one do you pick? Which one's the most profitable keyword out of that? I think, this is why you can't go too specific on keywords. I think Amazon will pick up the main keywords anyway. If it's a book about teaching colors is the main sort of keywords. Or learning colors. There's a difference. Teaching colors, learning colors, about colors. So there's so many different ways to express the same thing. But I think that when people type in what they're looking for, I think the algorithm adjusts that and they will find your book regardless. But
Right.
yeah, it's one of those things. I think that what happens with me is when I do keyword research as well, it's another problem because I then find other keywords for completely different books.
Right.
And then I go down a rabbit hole and I think, oh,
Yeah.
I could make that book. And that's why I enjoy keyword research, because I find ideas for different books or for similar books. And I do enjoy that part of it. But I wouldn't overcomplicate it now. And I think that comes in time as well. When you've been doing this for a while, you kind of realize what is important with your keywords.
Mhm.
What are they? Because at the beginning, I didn't even understand really what they were. I knew it was what people type in, but you get bogged down so much into the small detail that you forget what the overall thing is. And now I don't even fill in all the back-end keyword slots. I have some that are just blank. If I feel that I'm really reaching for keywords that are not that relevant, I just leave it blank and it works. It's not about quantity in keywords either. So yeah, that's what I find.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I don't leave any blank. I'll be honest with that. But
It doesn't happen
I
often,
mean,
but it does happen now.
yeah, I mean, it is about the quality of the keyword
Yeah.
phrases than the quantity. Um, and another thing to point out, and even KDP will tell you this if you look in the when it talks about keywords, is things like book. You don't have to put. Also, you don't have to put the plurals because the
Yeah.
algorithm automatically does that.
Yeah.
One thing that's really good that many people, I don't say most, but many people overlook or don't even think about are misspellings of words. So if there's if there's a common misspelling for your type of niche, like for example, let's say you're doing a book that's about moose, and you know maybe spell it with a U, even though that's a different type of moose.
Yeah.
Some people spell it wrong,
Yeah.
and so little things like that. And again, KDP tells you to do that. If there's common misspellings, do that. Also, you
Yeah.
don't need to repeat a word. If it's in one of your keyword slots or if it's in your title or whatever, you don't need to keep repeating it unless you know that it's a common, like, exact phrase, if you will, like if we were doing ads, if it's an exact phrase that people are searching for, then it's okay to repeat it. The reason why they
Yeah.
say don't is it's using up, extra characters that could be used for something else. But if you know that, let's say softball journal, like the word softball was used quite a bit in my back end keyword slots because it's the exact phrases that I was putting in there are ones that people were actually searching for. That's fine,
Mm.
but don't just put them in there just to fill spots, just to
Yeah.
fill, the 50 characters or whatever you get. So,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it's again, Amazon is all about relevancy. So the keywords are what help your book get more visible. So you get better ranking. So the more exact, spot on, or relevant your title is to your audience and to your book, the more chances it's going to rank up higher. But again, it's got to be something that reads proper. If it doesn't read right, then people aren't going to click on it.
Yeah.
If it seems too wordy, which I've seen so many times,
Oh,
I've seen so many
yes.
times people just put so many. I mean, if you look at what the publishing houses, the big five,
Mm.
you know, if they're putting out puzzle books or whatever children's books, they don't put, what is it? Goldilocks and the Three Bears children's book for ages 5 to 8. They don't put that in there. They don't put that in the subtitle, you know, because again, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look professional, and people are going to get scared off by it.
Yeah.
But again, it's a little different when you're talking about no content, low content books. You can kind of get away with that kind of stuff, especially in the subtitle. But if it's, like I said, the important thing is with your keyword research and with your keyword phrases that you use is the relevancy. Make sure that they're relevant. And again, the most relevant is a book that sells. So regardless of what you put as your keyword
Yeah.
phrases, if the interior or the cover or whatever, if it's not going to sell the book, it may rank high to begin with, but it will quickly start, moving down the page, and next thing you know, it's on page 100. So
Mm.
keyword research is important, but it's not the end all be all. It's not going to sell your book.
No, I agree with that. And I should really maybe research more sometimes, but I think it comes with experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know roughly what keywords are more relevant the more you know the subject. And this is why I think I don't have to research so much now, because I know my niche. I know I have
Right.
different brands and they have all specific type of books. And after a while, you kind of know what works and what doesn't. But if you're just starting out, definitely I would say, yes, do your research, but don't take it to the point of obsessing about it, and don't let it stop you from publishing your book. That is definitely something that it shouldn't happen. It's hard enough to, I mean, it's you feel so overwhelmed when you first start publishing and
Mm-hmm.
creating books. I can understand why people think that way and why they stop taking that step further, but it shouldn't. It's really not that difficult, and just try it. Just get your book out there and see how it goes, because if you don't try, then you're definitely not getting sales that
Right.
way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like to use Excel. You can use it. I keep track of the
Yeah.
keywords that I use, because again, you can go and change them. And I wouldn't change more than, one keyword slot, if you will. Because then if you change 5 of them and sales go up or sales go down, you don't know which one changed or
That's
which one affected it. It's just like, in school, you learn about science and you're doing science experiment, you only change one variable at a time. Same thing. But also I keep them because if I change it and sales go down, I need to know what to change it back to.
Yeah, that's a
So,
brilliant
but I will
point.
say, I usually don't talk about numbers or anything like that, and I'm not going to talk about money, but I am going to talk about, um, I have never in my almost decade of self-publishing, I've never spent more than an hour on keyword research. So if there's people out there that have spent days on it and everything else, I'm telling you, you're spending too much time.
That's
You're
true.
giving it too much power over your book and over your business.
That's very true. I mean, that was an excellent point to put it on a spreadsheet, because that is so true. You can make changes, and you don't know if those changes are going to be for the better or for
Right.
worse. So you need to be able to go back to what you had, and that's the only way to do it. Really, is to have them on a spreadsheet. That's an excellent tip. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, and this is a bit odd, but on more than one occasion, I've had keyword phrases or keywords that I've taken out of my back end keyword slots, and maybe a year later, I've actually put them back in because now they're profitable again. You know, because again, people's search, habits
Yeah,
change.
change.
It could be something in pop culture that now makes this word more in line with whatever this is than what you were searching for before,
Yeah.
and so it's again, and I wouldn't change things more frequently than once every 90 days or once every 6 months. um and there are books that I've never changed the keywords on. Those are ones that either are selling really well or ones that aren't selling at all. Which
Mm.
the ones that aren't selling at all, I probably should go in and change those. But I just, because of my business, I don't waste my time on the ones that aren't selling.
Yeah.
I just move forward and kind of learn from what didn't work. But yeah, it's so I wouldn't change your keyword phrases too frequently, because it also takes a while for the algorithm to to start showing it and updating and giving people time to search for it and things like that. So if you change it too frequently, you're not getting enough data to know whether it worked or not. But yeah,
Yeah.
I use an Excel spreadsheet for that, because like I said, I can not only keep track of what I'm currently using, but phrases I've used before, and even ideas for phrases in the future that I might want to swap in and out. So
That's a really good tip. So yeah, I've definitely learned something new today. Because I kind of make a note of my keywords, but I'm not very organized in that respect. So I think that's something that I should definitely do. And yeah, I think with keywords, it's one of those things. It's seems complicated, but it's not. It's really quite
right.
simple.
Yeah, yeah, and if you, and especially when you're early on, it's easy to overcomplicate everything. You just,
True.
especially when you've got all these YouTube channels and
Mm.
and commercials and all this other stuff that you're seeing that are telling you, how this one keyword phrase can make you so much, or having the wrong keywords, your book will never sell,
Yeah.
and which, I mean, technically that last part could be true, because if it never
Mm.
gets seen, it can't be sold. But again, I think the best way to phrase it is, again, don't give your keywords that much control over your business,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's, there's so many other aspects of publishing a book, whether it's self-publishing or traditionally published, that um that is more important than your keywords. I mean, I've been traditionally published as well, and I promise you that they spent way more time on the illustrations and the editing and the book cover than they spent on the keyword research.
Yeah. And I mean, it's to do with keywords as well, but I think the most important keyword, if anything, is how you place them in the title, how you structure your titles, because
Mhm.
that is what a title, not that it sells your book, but it can draw attention to your book.
Right.
If your title is intriguing and it kind of is to the point, that really helps with sales. And they are keywords in a way, because that's a title, but then you also have to think of a way to structure that title and make sure that you do that correctly, because there are a lot of titles, like you said earlier, that are stuffed with keywords and they don't read well. And I think your example was quite funny, Goldilocks and the Three
Yeah,
Bears, and 150 pages to
exactly.
gift to your granddaughter.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it doesn't need all that. And I think short and sweet and to the point is always best. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, the Goldilocks and Three Bears, that's kind of a comedic, is was why I was saying it. But
Mm.
if your book is fiction related, then putting keywords in your title and subtitle are probably not going to work. You'll
No.
probably be more geared towards the back keyword slots, and that's absolutely fine.
Mm.
Another thing, not to dive too deep into this, but your book description. There's um, different advice and opinions as to whether Amazon really searches through your book description for keywords. But
Yeah.
even if Amazon doesn't, Google does. And who doesn't want their book to be more Google, searchable? So, or any other, search engine for that matter. So, if there are keyword phrases that again make sense, that are relevant to your book, and you can put them in a way that reads properly and maybe doesn't fit for your site, your title, or your subtitle, then consider putting that in your book description. Again, but it's got to be readable. If it sounds like it was, robot generated, or it sounds like a caveman wrote it, because it's very blotchy as far as how it's written, then save that for the back keyword slots. But
Yeah.
again, if there's nothing else to take away from this podcast episode, it's that keyword research can make your book more visible on Amazon and other platforms by being more relevant, but it's not going to sell your book. It's not the end all be all. Don't ever give it the power that you can't publish a book because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of brings up the question, if you are spending so much time researching keywords, are you then not thinking of promoting your book? Because are you
Right.
hoping that your keywords will sell your book for you and you don't need to promote? And that is the wrong way to look at it. It's much better to really put all your efforts into promoting your book rather than
Right.
letting the keywords do that job, because they probably won't do as good a job as promoting your book will make.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's we could do a whole nother episode on marketing and promotion.
Definitely.
But yeah, but it's it you really, again, I think it just comes down to giving too much power to the keywords. You're giving it too much, too much of your um of the power.
Yeah,
It's not, I can't say it enough times, but it's not going to sell your book.
very true.
Its job is to make your book more discoverable.
Yeah. And
So
that's all it
find
is.
right, exactly. So
Yeah.
find keywords and keyword phrases that are relevant to your book that people will type in, because it could be super relevant, but if nobody's going to type it in, there's no sense of putting it in there,
Yeah.
And so, like I've seen people put in, red cover. No one searches for a notebook red cover,
Yeah.
or, a puzzle book red cover. They don't search for that.
Yeah.
Majority of the time they don't. And so, so it may be relevant, but is it something people are actually searching for?
Yeah.
And that's it, really. I mean, and the more searchable it is, the more relevant it is to exactly what the person's typing in, then the higher your ranking will be for it. Not to be confused with your bestseller rank. That's different. That's based on sales. But ranking for those keywords phrases, the more relevant it is to your book, your keywords, to what they typed in, the higher you're going to show up. It's really that simple. And like I said, I've never spent more than an hour, even early on, doing keyword research on any of my books. So like I said, if you're spending hours and maybe even days worried about it and doing it, you spent too much time. You've given it too much power. Don't overthink it, because again, like you said, with the exception of your title and subtitle, you can always go in and change it.
I totally agree. And that's why I don't really, I don't do much keyword research either. But
Right.
I do research niches. I think there's a difference, niche research versus keyword
Right.
research. I think for me, I think I would probably spend more time on niche research.
Absolutely.
But, keywords, I was laughing when you said red cover, because I've done that.
Yeah.
When I first started, I've done it. I made
I've done it
notebooks.
too. I've done it too.
It's one of those things when you first start, you don't know any better, and you think, oh, that's what's going to sell this book because people are going to look for red covers. Guess what? They're not. So,
Right. That's why I wanted to make sure I pointed that out, because,
yeah,
I've been talking about relevancy a lot, because that is important to the algorithm. But it, again, so your book might have a red cover, so that's relevant, right?
yeah,
Yeah, but if people aren't searching for that, it's a waste
exactly.
of space.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got extra spots, and like you said, you'll leave a spot blank sometimes, you want to throw in a red cover and see if somebody one in, 1,000 searches maybe types in red cover, go for it. But those aren't going to be the ones, those are going to be the ones that you index for, but you're probably not going to rank high for.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that kind of stuff. Again, it's, just if, and like I said, especially if it's not a niche you're familiar with, then, ask people in a group or whatever. If you were looking for a puzzle book, that had to do with gardening, what would you type in?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And like you said, 10 people are going to answer it 10 different ways, but you might be able to take those 10 different ways and find a great combination, that sounds really good as your title, really good as your subtitle, or, put them in your back keyword slots. But again, I cannot stress enough the fact that, like I said, I've actually had students tell me that they're not publishing their book because they haven't got the keyword research down and they're confused. And I'm like, and I've told them every single time, I'm like, you're giving the keywords too much power.
Yeah.
Okay? They're not a magic bullet. They're just words. They're just words.
That's true. Yeah. Totally agree.
Well, this has been another great mastermind, Nuria. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even leave us a review and let us know what you thought. Until next time, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.